Well, welcome back. We're about to get started here for our forum for the Board of Supervisors. Thank you all for being here. Once again, this is our second annual People's Forum for the Scott Board County Supervisors. Today's forum is hosted in collaboration with St. Ambrose Latinos Unidos, the National Davenport Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, the Davenport Local AAUW, the League of United Latin American Citizens, or LULAC, and the Power in Our Numbers Coalition. I am Dan Salazar, and I'll be your moderator today. This is a nonpartisan forum whose goal is to provide an avenue for candidates and citizens to be heard. In an effort of transparency, the candidates were given these pre-written questions in advance. Before I start, I wanted to go over some rules. Each candidate will have 90 seconds, a minute and 30 seconds to answer the questions. Obviously, there will be some leeway, but please try your best to stick to that time so we can get through the other questions. If you are having a hard time keeping track of that time, if you look just in front of these nice young ladies here, they'll have to keep track, give you a 30-second, and then a red one. It's like, hey, maybe you should probably okay. See, candidates may only speak under allotted time. Additional responses are allowed with moderator approval, so if there's something said that reasonably you need to say a little something about it, that's totally okay. Just no arguing, keep it simple. And then there should be closing statements at the end. So for the first half, I'm going to ask you some of these questions that I sent to you in no particular order. And about halfway through, just like the other forum, we're going to go ahead and take questions from the audience. So those of you who are just joining us, at your tables you have some note cards. Okay? Feel free to fill out the questions you want to ask, keep them appropriate. Please try not to target any particular person, try to keep it broad for all the candidates. If you raise them up like this, some nice young gentleman will come around and pick those up from you and give them to me, okay? Before we get started, just a little message from one of our sponsors. This is at your tables. This is for the Network Against Human Trafficking and Slavery. They are selling t-shirts and fundraising, okay? Wonderful.
Here's one of the t-shirts.
Beautiful. All right, so diving right in there, why don't we just go down the line here for starters and go ahead and just do a quick little introduction of yourselves.
All right, good afternoon. And thank you for allowing us to be here to provide our input and answer questions for this forum. I always appreciate the opportunity to get in front of people and talk. My name is Rita Rossa. I'm a current Scott County Supervisor. For those of you that don't know, I'm originally from Kansas City. I'm not a native of Iowa. I moved here in 1986 to attend Grinnell College for my undergraduate degree and stayed. I worked 8 years in the middle because I had a lot of debt from that, and worked several jobs and stayed for my master's degree. I decided to start a business. So I was self-employed for 25 years. I owned a financial planning stockbroker business that I owned outright, and I retired from that a few years ago. And I literally thought I was kind of retired, and wasn't paying much attention because I was doing a short stint at JCPenney's, because if you work there, you get 25% off, and I'm very much about being frugal. So there's a tip for anyone who wants a holiday job. At any rate, I was doing a holiday gig at JCPenney's, and my phone lit up in January about applying for the supervisor thing, which I wasn't totally oh God, I want to get back into the fray. But I thought about it and talked to a lot of people and decided to apply and was appointed. And it's been a very good fit. And as I tell everyone, when I was appointed on Thursday, I was sworn in on Friday, and by Monday I had the budget pretty much down pat, because I feel that my job was to know what I was doing going in and not wasting taxpayer money by trying to figure out what I was doing. So other than that, I've served 2 terms on City Council. If anyone has been a recipient of the DREAM Project money, I was the creative force behind that. My second year on council, I did a presentation to my council members and staff underscoring the importance of having housing, appropriate housing and affordable housing in Davenport, and being able to fund it year over year is very important. And I continue to work on that. I'm working on a housing trust fund that's currently in Ways and Means Committee at the state level that I keep alive, barely by a breath, with legislators. But as far as in the community, I'm very active. I do ballroom dancing. I'm a master gardener, master conservationist. I teach water aerobics in the morning at the Y. I'm a senior fitness instructor and a silver sneakers instructor as well. And I have a native roots garden. So that's just a little snippet. Be happy to answer questions afterwards from anyone who wants to talk to me individually. Thank you.
My name is Todd Hill. Thank you for this opportunity. I was born in Davenport, lived here pretty much my entire life. I did graduate in the area at United Township. I moved away for a short time to Green Bay, Wisconsin, where I met my wife. But it's pretty hard to be a Bears fan in Packer territory, so I moved back. We're raising 5 children in the Davenport School District. I've started a business, I've been an entrepreneur, I've managed businesses, I've worked in transportation, manufacturing, and I currently am an employee for Scott County. And thank you for your time.
My name's Ken Beck, and I want to also thank you all for having us here today to talk about some of the issues that are facing Scott County. And I became a county supervisor in 2017. I worked for Terracon Consultants, which is a national geotechnical firm, for close to 34 and a half years, and retired in 2019. I knew I wasn't going to sit idle at home after retirement, so that's why I decided in 2016 this would be a good way for me to give back to the community, because all those years that I was a consulting engineer, putting in excess of 50 hours average every week, didn't give me a sufficient amount of time to get involved with anything but ad hoc committees for school board agendas and so on and so forth. A little bit about myself from my family standpoint. I'm the first graduate of college. My mother's family immigrated from Czechoslovakia, and if I remember right, I didn't have my notes in front of me, 1912 or 1918, I'm trying to remember which date. And my mother was actually the first born in the United States. The rest of her family were all born in Czechoslovakia. And Linda and I have 2 children, and we moved here in 1984, so this is really what we consider home. And when I say 2 small children, my son was 6 weeks old when we moved here from Denver, Colorado, for me to take this position with Terracon. So yes, just finish up with both of my children live in this area, my grandchildren live in this area, and yes, if you want to know, my son is Scott Beck, who wrote A Quiet Place and a bunch of other movies afterwards, and is one of the partners down in The Last Picture House. Thank you.
Hello, it does work. Hi, I'm Maria Briviesco. First of all, thank you for hosting this, and thank you all for being here, taking time from this beautiful afternoon out there. I mean, it is gorgeous. I'm running for Scott County Board of Supervisors because I care about the community. A little bit about myself, though. I was born in Mercedes, Texas, which is 5 miles from the Mexican border. And we grew up fairly poor. I don't know if you've heard Christina Bohannon. She always talks about how excited they were when they got a bigger trailer. Well, we were excited. I don't know if you remember what happened in 1969. We walked on the moon. But something else happened in 1969. My neighborhood got indoor plumbing. So, I mean, that was very exciting for us. I mean, we were very, we lived in the poor side of town. You know, we were divided by railroad tracks, and there was very much a very different way of life on the side of the tracks that I lived on and on the other side. So I know what poverty is. I grew up in poverty. I was a farm worker, but one of the things that I realized and my family realized is that education is key to be advancing in this country. And we understood that this country was the land of opportunity, and we took advantage of those opportunities. So when I had a chance to get educated, I did. I decided that I wanted to be a lawyer because it was something that was far-fetched. The people didn't think I could be a lawyer. And I decided to come to Iowa to go to law school in 1980. And also to learn how to downhill ski. Well, I didn't learn how to ski, but I did meet my husband, who's a native of Davenport. And we have 3 grown sons. My husband's a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. I specialized at the Arsenal in contract law, administrative law, so I know how to read the law, I know how to interpret statutes, and I ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, candidates. So moving on, I wanted to start off with the question of labor. So with mounting labor needs throughout the state, Is there room for collaboration with immigrant labor programs to fulfill the industry and farming needs, or is there some other solution that comes to mind? And let's go ahead and we'll start on Maria's side and work our way down, okay?
Well, of course, there should always be room for collaboration, and I believe there is a visa program where you can bring in people from other countries to work in agriculture. There are abuses in that program though, lots of abuses, and I think it was just in the newspaper recently that one of the companies basically brings in workers from Mexico and South America and charges them inappropriately for things like laundry and other stuff. So there is a program in place under our current immigration law. I think that we need to try to use those as much as possible and to encourage our employers to use that as much as possible. That's all I have to say.
Well, with respect to the county and the county board, of course, immigration laws are way above our pay level up at the state and federal level. But, you know, we have over 650 employees currently, and on any given day, we have probably on the order of 30 plus openings. And we would welcome any person coming in that is qualified to work in this state, in the United States, to apply for any of those jobs if they have the qualifications. So from a respect from the county, yes, we would, you know, and welcome anybody who's here. As I just indicated to you, my mother's parents immigrated to this country. We've also have worked with World Relief on certain projects. Matter of fact, I was asked to be on a meeting with Bettendorf schools. I'm on some Davenport school things too, but for Bettendorf schools to discuss about the immigration issues that come with language with the schools. And so that's one thing that Illinois is way advanced beyond the Iowa side when it comes to that sort of service and how to welcome the immigrants through the World Relief program, which are here on special visas, special work conditions. But thank you.
Yeah, like Maria said, there are immigration things we can do that already exist, but there's also a gap between those because a lot of those are encouraging people or companies to go out and get people from foreign countries to come here on visa, but we also need something to address the people that are coming here already legally and getting them work as well. And we need to adopt some of the policies or adapt some policy to help with the migrants coming across the border now to get jobs. But yeah, it like Ken said, it's something over the county level. You know, you really got to go to the state and federal level to get those changes.
Yes, so I'm not going to repeat what other people have said. Immigration employment is not a part of the county supervisor position or even in our purview, so the question is way outside what we actually handle. But not to repeat anything anyone else said, agree right down the line. Funny enough, my thesis I spent in West Liberty, so I actually worked for a year with immigrants that were undocumented in West Liberty. And I know some people have some feelings about that, but the reality is there are undocumented individuals and families here in Iowa. They're brought here by companies to work in their plants, and it's actually, to some degree, a part of human trafficking, where you have people that are undocumented that are held hostage by companies because they can control where they live, how much they're paid, if they're paid at all, because there's always that threat of being deported or separated from their families. And that's a really big problem here in Iowa and across the country. So the only thing I would say on that, other than be aware of it, be mindful of it, that it does happen. It is a part of human trafficking. We often think of human trafficking as sex trafficking. That is not all that it is. There are people living here. I worked with them, trying to help them find resources in the community, and it's very difficult to do if you don't have paperwork and documentation, and there's always people in the community that are willing to turn you in and get rid of you. And the reality is, this country is made on immigrants. We're filled with immigrants, and if every person who's a first-generation immigrant in this country stopped working tomorrow, we'd be done. It'd be one day and the U.S. would be completely finished. I'm stopping. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on, our next question deals with the youth in our community. It's clear that there have been significant investments for those in juvenile detention facilities. Is this rehabilitation enough, or are there other steps you'd like to see moving forward for the youth? And we can start here.
Oh, am I sorry? I thought you were going down the line. Sorry.
Well, you go back for it.
Sure. Okay. Very good. Youth. Sorry. Okay, youth in the community. So actually a topic near and dear to my heart. When I first moved here in 2001 to Davenport proper, I commuted here from Iowa City for years. I actually started a program for at-risk youth out at my own funding, out of my own pocket. And I took youth that had spent time in detention, and I had them work for me, technically, doing things in the neighborhood like picking up garbage. I had written agreements, so no one had a fuss about that from their parents or guardian. And they picked up garbage, and we worked at the community garden, and we did all kinds of things, and I took them to places to learn more about life and, you know, and skills. And I think one of the things that the YGRC Center does now, if you've had a chance to hear a presentation from Jeremy Fuller, the director, is that it is a very comprehensive program. We're not just arresting youth and throwing them in jail behind bars. That is not what's happening. In fact, it is hard to keep a youth with our current system in detention. So the program that we have in place is that we take them in, and one I've advocated for back when I first moved here, we take them in and then we try to hook them up with services to not only meet their needs in the community, but also their family needs. The reality is, coming myself from poverty and living on welfare and project housing in Kansas City, you can't take a young person and expect them to make better choices without some help for not only them, but also their family and their parents. It doesn't work unless it's comprehensive. And that's what the YJRC actually does, is a comprehensive program. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Yeah, the YJRC has a couple great programs they offer. You can see that they're pretty successful. They have a 68 to 70% success rate in the first year of non-repeat offenders. But that also shows that there's room for improvement, right? And they also don't have programs for everything that's out there. You know, they have programs for kids as it pertains to the school and trouble at school. They also have programs for the kids in the car thefts, but you know, something more prevalent is kids in gun violence, you know, and so I'd like to see a program designed to address that gun violence and, you know, what we could do to address that situation. So there's always more to be done.
You know, when you take a look at the programs that the county does provide, I'll name them off, I have them here. But you have to remember, this is not just something the county decides on. We have to work with the 7th Judicial. And matter of fact, when one of our supervisors years ago came with the YAP program, we talked with the 7th Judicial Chief Justice, and she was not ready to take on another program because we're already invested in what's now called the CAP program, Community Assessment Program. And that's one of the things that Davenport has collaborated with the county and the YJRC to provide monies to put on a section of the building so that the community assessment program can be there right when the kids come in. But those programs that we do have, as was mentioned but not by name, is the Auto Theft Accountability Program, which is a form of restorative justice. That has gone on to encounter other things other than just auto theft, any type of theft that goes along with that. I'll quickly go through because I've got 30 seconds left. School-based restorative mediation, which has stopped a lot of violence in the schools once they go through this mediation program. TJ Schneckloff has been a big force behind that. Youth-centered planning meeting. This is an important one where youth have been incarcerated before, and they meet with the family to see how they can make the whole system better. And I'll just finish 2 last things. Is the enhanced home detention, where if you're a first-time offender, you get to go home with an ankle bracelet and they keep you there. And also pre-charged diversion programs. Could there be more programs? Yes. And we will work with the 7th Judicial for any programs that would come forward to see if they would accept those. Thank you.
I know.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we have a really big problem, And we as a community, we want to break. I know that I participated in many meetings where our aim, our goal was to break the school to prison pipeline. I actually participated in a couple of the restorative justice circles where we met with the juveniles that were charged with stealing automobiles. And that is a good program. One of the things that disturbed me though was, and it's still, was the YJRC, the one that's being built, I think it's too large. One of the criticisms I have is that if you build a really large facility to house, I think, like 40 people, 40 young individuals, the tendency will be to fill them. And I think that we need to spend more money in intervening and trying to help them while they're at school, trying to help their families, and help them learn how to achieve their potential. So yes, we have done a lot of things. So the programs that Ken has mentioned are good, but I think we can do better. And I think we need to start by using our money, our funds, to try to provide better services to those families that need them most. Thank
you. I always want to make sure that the public is aware of actual facts and data. So the YJRC being larger is not that we have capacity to have more kids. We are over capacity and our current facility is too small, and it's been too small for years. Every day we have to house kids outside of the state of Iowa. It costs us $300 a day per child. Just add that up in your mind. So we're trying to be fiscally responsible and keep our kids here locally, because it can cost us several $100,000s a year to house outside of our system. So there's another component to that of why the YJRC is a little bit bigger. We're not creating capacity for more kids. We already have the kids in the system. Just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think Ken had some quick.
Yeah, just a rebuttal to that. It wasn't the supervisors that decided the size of it. We had a committee of 17 folks, and some of the folks in this room were there. They're the ones that decided that we needed 36 for overflow, folks, not 40. It's 36 with 4 overflow. And how many adult waivers do you think we have currently that we're holding? And these are kids who have done murders. They've carried guns as a felon. We have 10 of those that we need. And do you think you want those in there with the first or second time offenders? No. That's why you need the space in the YJRC. Spread them out, keep them separate, and make sure that the first or second timers don't become learning what you do to become a long-term criminal. So thank you.
And Maria, Todd, anything else you want to add real quick before we
Yes, I actually spoke to Jeremy Kaiser, and he says, yes, it does cost them when there's not enough room at the current facility, which is admittedly small. It doesn't house that many kids, but it's $250 per day to house them elsewhere. And I still submit that the facility, and maybe there was input from the community, I still believe it's a little bit too large. Because I believe that if you build it, they will come.
Thank you. Todd, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay.
Pretty much covered
Say
it
no.
all. 100%.
Just making sure all's fair. All right, so moving on here. I think this will be the last question before we move on to questions from the audience. So if you guys have those ready, go ahead and bring those up to me, okay? And you can bring them to him over. So it's kind of a long build-up. I'll make it simple here at the end. Scott County has established agricultural preservation land use policies along the zoning and subdivision regulations to limit the encroachment of non-agricultural related development in the areas of prime farmland. Yet, prime farmland was voluntarily annexed into Davenport to be included in 329 acres sold to Meta, and Eldridge is annexing 250. So the point is, do you believe that these policies are enough? What's the right balance between the expansion of the city and maintaining that prime farmland for farmers? And let's see, I think we started here last, so Maria, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Okay. Urban sprawl is a real problem. And I believe that our number one goal as county board supervisors is to protect and preserve the most valuable thing that we have in Scott County, which is the rich, fertile farmland, the soil that we have. There has been some voluntary annexations. I cannot speak to, the reasoning behind those. I think we should be fighting tooth and nail to say no. I think we need to be collaborating with some of the city leaders and business leaders and try to get them to develop the blighted areas in Davenport rather than to go on and to take our farmland. So I think that we need to do better in enforcing the ordinance that we currently have on the books. There is an ordinance, but I think too often we do not fairly and consistently enforce that ordinance.
Well, one thing I will agree is that our first order of business in the county is agriculture. And we need to maintain our land for agricultural purposes. But we all have to grow as a community. And I bet you every single person in this house, in this room, your house was once either on forest ground or farmland. And if that development had not occurred, you wouldn't have a house that you're living in right now, or businesses sitting on that land. But business attraction, growth, and economic development are vital to a vibrant community, to success of community. And the way the laws are written is that we have no say-so if a city wants to annex in property from the county. But what we do have control over is we have a comprehensive land use map. And we've outlined those areas where we think that expansion could be done, and as a comprehensive plan says, in an orderly and efficient manner. And what the efficient manner means, we don't want these developments out in the middle of the county where we don't have any utilities, we don't have any infrastructure types. So it makes perfectly good sense for these types of projects to be annexed into a city who can provide that and provide some growth to our community. Because quite frankly, folks, a community either is growing or you're dying. And I don't want to be in a dying community. Thank you.
Well, that was pretty well said. So, I mean, our program is there to protect our agricultural land, but I have to agree, like, I don't think that urban sprawl is a problem. Like, that is the reality when you're producing children. I have 5 of them. They grow up, they live in the community, they have to have jobs, they have to have homes. We're gonna get bigger, we're gonna need places to work, places to entertain ourselves, go out to dinner. So that's just the reality is eventually, some preserved land is gonna get overtaken, but I think the county does a good job right now, like Ken said, of making sure it happens over here where there's already industrial or commercial growth, or there's already residential homes coming up here, and we're not just going out in the middle of some farmland and gonna, throw up a meta building for storage, so, but, yeah, so, thank you.
Thought it'd be a car wash.
Okay.
We don't have enough $30 car washes in the city of Davenport. They're on every corner. So I'm not going to repeat what's already been said. Ken is actually correct. So I'm just going to augment it because I always like to educate because a lot of people are misinformed about what the county is and what the county oversees. So the county, as a county, our ordinances only cover unincorporated Scott County. So we do not cover incorporated areas like the cities of Davenport, Bettendorf, Eldridge, LeClaire, okay? We have no authority over those cities at all, none. They can do whatever they want. Even last week, LeClaire and Davenport sent us a letter letting us know they're gonna have a TIF. LeClaire's building the YMCA in conjunction with the YMCA, right? And we just provided an opinion of, hey, we don't really care how you're doing the TIF, and LeClaire's like, okay, great, we're just still gonna do it anyway. So we provide an opinion, we have no authority. So be very clear on that. And as individual people, if you have farmland and you sell it to the city of Davenport and it's adjacent to their current city limits and the city wants to annex, again, we don't have a lot of say in that because we cover unincorporated Scott County. And we had a case recently where someone bought prime farmland and attempted to put up a business, and we denied their request categorically across the board, 100% agreement, and they're suing now for that. But we have a policy, we do stick by the policy 100%. People don't like it, but we stick by it. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. The winter overflow emergency homeless shelter in Davenport will not be open this year due to insufficient funding. The city claims that they have no authority to tax for health and welfare service delivery. Why is Scott County not stepping forward to fund winter emergency overflow homeless shelter capacity this winter? Where are these people supposed to go? And Rita, we can start with you.
Yeah, that's an easy answer. If I'm not sure what happened, we actually funded them. They asked us for a specified amount of money, and we gave it. So I'm not sure what happened. So I'm very interested in wondering where that question's coming from, because as far as I'm aware, that shelter will be open and is fully funded. Anyone else, please comment on that, because I know we funded it. It was on our agenda.
And again, I'm stretching my memory here, I think it was Humility Homes was the one that was the primary person running the shelter. And they asked for funding from all the big seven, which includes East Moline, Rock Island, Davenport, Bettendorf, and the 2 counties for both sides. Because folks, the river is not a barrier for folks who are homeless. And so each one, provided money last year for it, and HHS, I believe, or HHS, I'm getting the wrong acronym now, Humility Homes, indicated that they were stopping the shelter. It wasn't any of the governments that said that they were stopping the shelters. They're the ones that said they were stopping the shelters. And at this point in time, I'm not aware of the discussions coming up on what the funding is needed or where the funding source is coming from for this winter. That's something that we'll be looking at sometime, I hope, fairly soon, because the cold weather's going to be here in a not too short fashion. But at this point, we have not had that request come through for us yet, and the big seven have not got together to discuss this issue, but we meet once a month, and I had another commitment this month, but I'm sure it'll be up at least at next month's meeting. So.
Whoever would like to have it.
All right.
Keep wanting to go to your
I know
window.
that I need to. All right, so I think we need to take proactive measures. If Rita's correct and the county funded, we need to look into why those statements are being made. But regardless, it's my understanding that there's a surplus of funds at the county level. So I think that the current board needs to be ready to fund whatever request comes your way, because I don't think we want people freezing to death, in our area. And I think number one, the purpose of government is to help people, to provide services to people.
Todd, you have something to say?
Yeah, just that the county does have programs that, people are there to take advantage of. We have funded them in the past, like these two said before. If they haven't come forward asking for funding because of they're deciding on their own to shut it down for whatever reason, we can't control that. But, it's up to them to come ask us.
If I did follow up, I mean,
Rita was saying, I'm sorry.
Well,
And keep
go
on.
ahead. Go ahead. No, hit it. I thought you were still ready.
So I just wanted to clarify, because I'm aware I had someone ask me about the article that Sarah did in the Quad City Times. I just want to clarify, we do not currently have surplus. The budget session starts in October. We don't have a final budget till April. Be very clear on that. We have not negotiated with the unions for raises. We have not gotten any of the legislature for the state of Iowa their budget cuts. So we are prepared. We've cut our budget, so it may look like we have a surplus, but we are prepared. We're putting ourselves in a position to be prepared for the cuts that are coming, because they are coming. That is already pretty much guaranteed. So it's not that we have a surplus. The budget doesn't actually get done until April and voted on until next year. So just clarity on that. Whatever you've seen about the budget right now is not accurate. So it's just in flux.
Well, the only thing I was going to follow up with is if Humility Homes doesn't run the shelter, the county's not, we don't have staff to run the shelter. We don't know how we're running a homeless shelter. So somebody has to step up from the community who's capable of doing that. Give us what type of money is needed to run it. And then Big Seven will take a look and see how we can fund it or something.
Now, this next question has to deal with the budget, and Rita, I know you just talked a little bit about it, but I want to ask her anyway because I think some more conversation is kind of a good thing. So the question is, there were significant cuts to the 2024 budget. Yet Scott County had a $12.8 million surplus. how will you address those programs that got cut, such as cancer or others? So, and I'm going to start here with Maria in a second, just to go the other way. But based off what was said, right, what can you say then about those that are being cut now, when you're looking in the future and you can assure that things are going to be cut? Well, what can be done to maybe prevent that, and so on and so forth?
You want me to go? Okay. Well, here's the thing. We need to be responsible with the funds that we do have. Property taxes is the main source of income for the county. And the tax rates have been capped somewhat by the state legislature. So we know that we're going to have to be tightening our belt. And there's many things that we have to reconsider. And I think we have to be fiscally responsible and look at what we can cut and what we shouldn't cut. And that's where there's a big difference between, I'm going to say it now, between Republicans and Democrats. Because when a Republican is looking at the budget, they will more likely cut the services to people rather than to see what can we do. And that's what resulted in the cutting of all the funds to KSI and CATS. There could have been other projects cut. There could have perhaps been less vehicles bought or postponement of major purchases. There could have been different action taken by the board so that people at KSI didn't have to experience losing services. I think that the staff at KSI took heroic measures to keep up the services, but they are constrained somewhat by the lack of funding that was sprung upon them, because they were thinking only Jane's Place was going to be defunded, and then the whole thing was defunded. And that was, God, I had to stop saying, hang on.
It's okay,
But bottom line, the priorities should be human beings always. And when you overvalue, put more emphasis on buying property, real estate. Currently, I mean, they just bought, the Board of Supervisors on a 3-2 basis, decided to buy property at Paul Revere that needed to be remediated, and that's why there's no more mold, Rita, because you did spend money to remediate the mold. Those decisions have to be, you have to think about it before you start buying stuff when you know budget cuts are coming.
And there's a lot of misinformation on the budget. Do you know when we get our money to fund the county? September and March. That is when we get our money. We don't have a constant stream of income coming through. So that's why we end up with what's called a fund balance. The fund balance is those dollars that help us carry through the months that we have to pay all these bills while we don't have any income coming through. We're also required to carry a certain amount of fund balance forward each year to make sure that we can stay solvent and provide those services to you. And I'll let Rita talk about the KSI, because there's a lot of misunderstanding there too. And there's a lot of misunderstanding regarding the general store that we were just talking about. No one really understands the fact that we were giving the ultimatum that the contract with DOT was ending December 30th of this year. We had to make a decision on where the county store was going to move, because 50% of our business in the treasurer's office is done at that location. And that building, if anybody's been out to it, a car fell into a sinkhole out in the parking lot. The front door of that facility fell off. That facility goes back, I think, to the 1960s and was renovated 30 years ago, and nothing's been done to it since. So we had a choice to make. This came up, and we saw it as a good choice to move forward to having a facility that we could own, that we could have a decision on how it's done, not renting, sending money to a landlord that has sinkholes in the parking lot, sewer lines that break every how many feet, and doors that fall off the front. Thank you.
Yeah, so like Ken said, we're required to have like 15 or 20% to carry over to continue providing services, because we only get our money, twice a year. I'm not going to speak on the Paul Revere Center because I'm not a fan of it. I think it was a rushed decision and other things could have been done elsewise. If you'd like to talk about it, I got a lot to say. But the board did what they did, and we can't change it now, so. But I do think there's other ways to look and find money to cut here and there, maybe not $200,000 to refund KSI, but, I don't know if any of you have ever looked at the county checkbook, but, sometimes it's not real clear on where the money's going and why it's going there, and I think we could do a better job of, overseeing that process and making sure there's accountability and transparency for all the community.
Sorry, you're not handing that to
Yeah, sure.
It's like a mouse in a cage. I'm so used to the other forums. We didn't have an individual microphone. This is almost a luxury. Oh gee, lots to unpack there. The other thing I love about election season, you get everybody has a platform of things and they point out stuff of leaving out some of the facts.
Yeah.
And I would encourage everybody in the room to understand, never rely on any one person telling you something, because that may not be the truth. Always do your own research. Always. Regardless of who's talking to you. Always take your time and look up the facts. Do not listen to me or anyone else that's sitting up here. Do your own research. You don't have to take my word for it. But at any rate, since I'm sitting up here, I'm going to give you my word. So here it goes. Yes, we have $12 million in reserves. We are required to keep that by law. We have to have that on hand in case of an emergency. When the jail roof fell in, we needed to have money on hand to fix it. I mean, some of you may have the opinion, they're prisoners, they don't need a roof. Let them rain and snow on them. But there's some things called human rights, and we have to follow that. So we have to have money set aside for emergencies. Even when the building collapsed downtown, we're not a part of Davenport, but we were there in the event of an emergency if they needed some additional help. So we have to have that money, and our percentage is 15% of our overall operating budget, okay? Second, CADS has not gone anywhere. All we did is take it back. If you want to look at CADS and the current programming, it is still in force. Maria is incorrect. The website for CADS is cads-ia.com. Look it up. It has all the programming there, numbers you can call, everything that you want, okay? KSI is a whole nother down the rabbit hole, but I've been meeting with KSI, various meetings over the course of the past 15 months with Laura Kopp, Sue Rector, Linda Miller, who was with the state, who's now on the board, and Jerry, who was the original founder of KSI. So there's a lot more going on there. It's not as simple as the budget was cut, blah, blah, blah. But KSI does have funding replacing ours with RDA. So for the next 4 years, apparently. I thought it was 3, but it's 4. So they do have funding in place. So again, we can talk more about that. There's another question, but I'll leave it there because I got to stop.
And real quick, I think Maria, you might have her, but I just, you mentioned her name, so I just wanted to give you a chance.
Okay, it is true that you should do your own research. And I trust what I read in the paper generally. And what I read in the paper was that KSI is having a forum this afternoon to counter all the factual inaccuracies that were, the statements that were made in the last forum about KSI not having adequate financial planning and whatnot. So there is a forum going on right now to address the factual misstatements made before. And I'd like to point out that the lease coming to an end in December should not have come as a surprise to anybody. I didn't see in the, when I printed out the projected projects, capital projects, I didn't see any evidence that there was a goal of buying more property. And it should have been discussed. It shouldn't have come as a surprise if you didn't like where the county general store was. I think you should have talked about it earlier. I'm running because I think we need to have more transparency and accountability, and that's what I intend to do when I get elected. We're going to make sure that issues are discussed beforehand and not after the fact.
Oh, Maria, was that information from the paper about KSI at 10 o'clock in the morning? You read it from the paper, right, QC Times? About the forum?
That's what I said, yes.
Right. You said this afternoon. But just FYI, so no one's looking for it, it got canceled Wednesday, I believe it was, Wednesday afternoon. So there is no forum at KSI. It was supposed to be at 10 o'clock 10 o'clock yesterday morning, and it was canceled. So just putting that out there.
All right, just moving on here. It's a good,
Correcting data.
productive conversation, that's what it's for. Thank you for that. Moving on, our next question is, What would you say to those who might question the board's ability to represent the entire county, being it's currently being occupied by majority one political party? And I can't recall, did we start with you last time?
No, we started with
Okay,
Maria.
so we'll start here and work our way down.
Are we starting with me again?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. So I said this 1,000 times. The political party has absolutely nothing to do with this job at all. You are voting for the person that you feel can best do this job. It is not based on a political party. If someone tells you they're coming in, they're bringing values of the Republican or Democrat Party, they probably need some therapy. It is not about a political party. Our job primarily is under the state of Iowa. We are held accountable to a number of laws and a number of unfunded mandates. So this job is more managerial than it is anything else. It is not a vigilante job. No one's coming in here and giving money to 50,000 organization. It simply isn't happening. We don't have that latitude per state law. So political parties are really not relevant at all as far as this job goes. And just as a plug, for every other elected county position, political party does not have an impact either. We just have to run by party in order to be elected. So it's either Republican, Democrat, or no party. And I think Libertarian can also have a candidate, I believe. I'm not sure, there's only like 1,000 of them in the county. But as far as representing, we represent everybody in the county just by nature of what we do. All of our programs that come from the state and the federal government, health and human services and community services, apply to everyone that qualifies under those programs. There's no discrimination. Everyone is treated equally. We do not have separate but equal programs. I would not be a component of that. I believe everyone should be treated the same and everyone has the same access to all the programs. And we have that at the county. And just as a reminder, the county primarily covers unincorporated Scott County, not every city that's incorporated. Ian.
Yeah, like Rita said, the county party thing should really not be, I mean, we should be a no-party system. We shouldn't be elected based on Democrat or Republican. As far as representation comes, though, when it comes to an election that is done by partisans, I mean, that is a benefit to be part of a party, because there are people out there who, you know, value the Democrat opinion or the Republican opinion more than one or the other, and they're not always looking at the individual. You know, I work every day with people who are like, oh, you're a Democrat, aren't you? You know, well, obviously he's not going to vote for a Democrat. But when it comes to representation on the board, I think the best way to get your representation is to be talking with your board members, you know, making sure your ideas and your concerns are heard, and those people on the board are then taking that information and forwarding it on and designing the policies that help, you know, get you what you need. I can say, you know, my personal opinion, looking at everybody up here, I think as a candidate, I would offer a different perspective and a lot of, you know, different ideas than what exists now. Thank you.
Well, I have to agree with what has already been said, is the county board is not a partisan party. And matter of fact, I would almost challenge somebody in this room to come up with a decision that the board has made that was partisan. There's been some discussion back during the pandemic that may have aligned with one party versus the others, but there was no decisions made. And talk about what Rita has talked about too, is about the home rule. Is we really have only authority over the unincorporated areas outside of the cities. And so, you know, when people are talking about us going in and talking about what should be done in the city, potholes, transit, so on and so forth, we have no say-so over that. And again, going back, I've never been approached by my party to ram something down through a county policy. Never. Have I been influenced by other people, not with my party, to put certain people on certain positions? Yes. And quite frankly, I totally ignore them. Because this has to be what's best for Scott County, and what's best for Scott County is somebody who's nonpartisan. Thank you.
I believe that we need balance, and we don't have balance in the county level. We don't have balance at the state level either. I think we have Republicans running, you know, the state. The Republicans have the trifecta, and they've passed legislation that has gutted workers' compensation, gutted collective bargaining agreements, and at the county level, maybe it's not as obvious, but one of the things that I will say is that the county employees, they're the ones that do the actual job, and they prepare the budget, and they run the county. And what they do is they brief the board. We're management. We listen to the briefings, and we're supposed to be asking the questions. And we should be questioning everything that they put before us. And so at that point, when you make a decision, it is a policy decision oftentimes when you have to make cuts in the budget. What is it that you value? Now, Ken mentioned that he wanted to see Scott County to continue to grow, because if a community doesn't grow, it's gonna die. I totally disagree with that. I think, did you guys see that there was an elk running in front of the TBK parking lot? I mean, the poor wildlife, they have nowhere to go. We need to have common sense growth. I do welcome responsible corporations to come to Scott County, but we need to stop using tax credits. We need to be sure to value workers as much as we value job creators. And I want to say, this is very important, is that currently there is a case before the Iowa Supreme Court involving how the board kept secret the identity of the people who applied for the vacant position at the board. There were 27 applicants. 13 of those 27 applicants requested, after this county said they had that right, to keep their application confidential. The board discussed 14 applicants, applicant number 14, 15, 16, and 20. Then they went to closed session. The public had no idea who they were talking about. The supervisors did. The supervisors knew exactly who those people were. They came back and they said number 16 was selected. Number 16 was Rita Rawson. I'm telling you, and it's partisan, okay? There were other people there that were not Republicans, and they didn't get the job. They didn't get the appointment, and I don't know.
So, quickly,
Just
quickly, Ken, 10 seconds.
Supervisors had no idea who those applicants were. Absolutely no idea. We weren't any part of that whole selection process. That's the treasurer, the auditor.
That's correct.
And, yeah. So we had no idea.
And it's state law.
Yeah, and the other thing is about tax incentives. Again, we have nothing to do with the cities, who are the ones giving the tax, the TIFs. Matter of fact, if you read every single one of our letters that we do, we object to TIF. We believe TIF should be something that the county should have the option of either supporting or not supporting, so that everybody's tax money here doesn't go to LeClaire to help support a YMCA. Thank you.
Okay, I agree, I misspoke. Partisan politics was involved, though.
Excuse me,
Salazar.
hold on. I want to move on. I have one more question I want to get through before we wrap up, okay, and have our conclusion. All right? Thank you.
It was addressing me personally.
5 seconds.
Just, okay.
5 seconds.
Just since Maria's wants to continue targeting my appointment, even though I am overqualified, it was a 3-person panel. That is state law. It is not county law. It is not the supervisors. And all 3, which included 1 Democrat, Rita Vargas, voted unanimously to appoint me.
All right.
So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
5 seconds. There you
Okay,
go.
now I want to move on. Now this next question deals with the environment. So Iowa has a unique relationship with the environment and its farmers that it has. So what kind of oversight is there, and what needs to be enacted to look over Iowa livestock, cattle, its hogs, and making sure that the pesticide runoff isn't contaminating our rivers and our environment? And we're gonna go ahead and start with Maria.
Oh, there is a problem with the too much nitrates in our water systems. Unfortunately, the local government doesn't have much control over that. The DNR takes care of that situation, and the one problem that I see is that in the state of Iowa, there is a proliferation, and I call them CAFOs, and they're confined animal feeding operations or concentrated animal feeding operations. There is, if you look at a map of Iowa, the concentration of CAFOs is like unusually large. Scott County is not there yet, And there is we are bound by they call it the master matrix. And the county employees do have a role, the board of supervisors have a role, and their role is to review the application and all the supporting documentations and to verify the information therein. So that's the only power that the board of supervisors have, is to apply what's currently before us. And I wish that we need to lobby the state legislators to give us a little bit more authority, because it's a real problem.
Okay. I was looking for some information because we are working with the partners of Scott County Watershed who go out and monitor our creeks on a periodic basis. And what you said is correct, is that all the water is under the jurisdiction of the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. They control the CAFOs. We are in the matrix voluntarily. If we did not do that, the DNR would decide anyway. And even if we decide against citing a CAFO, the DNR will decide that on their own. The DNR has all the say-so over the CAFOs. They gave us at least the opportunity to voice our opinion by going through the master matrix. But back to the nitrates. Everybody keeps talking about the nitrates. The partners of Scott County Watershed, in their measurements, measured out in the rural area that it's 4 parts per million on an average. In the city, it's 2 parts per million, and the whole average is 3 parts per million. Does anybody in this room know what the maximum allowed by the state? 10. It's 10. So yes, we need some work to do, but we're not in dire straits at this point. And matter of fact, most farmers who are attributing to the 4 parts per million are working on cover crops, on bioswales, other areas to try to reduce that nitrate load. In addition, I'll just finish this up, the manure in the CAFOs typically is a 1-year storage. They're required by law to integrate that into the soil so that the amount that runs off is reduced. And one last thing too. The retention, these CAFOs have a secondary containment and a primary containment. And being an engineer, civil engineer that's worked on many different municipal wastewater treatment lagoons, some of the older ones in small towns are not even as good as these CAFOs are now. So think about that. Thank you.
Like everybody said, the DNR controls it. I think, it's not something we have to worry about in Scott County, thankfully, yet. But we need to be proactive and make sure we're doing our due diligence and doing what we can to stop, bigger expansions or new businesses from coming here. That it is, in the state of Iowa, it is a problem because there just recently was a county or a town whose water levels were high in nitrates. They were like 18 parts per million or something. So, but like Ken said, nowadays, with technology and stuff, a lot of these are phenomenal buildings that don't contribute a lot of pollution. It's the smaller towns and the existing ones that, existed before current legislature.
All right, I think the horse has been beaten to death on CAFOs, and I'm not going to continue kicking the horse that's already dead, clearly on the ground. So what I will say is someone in here may have thought of something else like related to the environment, like clean air and water. And again, that is a DNR purview. That's not the county. We participate at the flexibility of the DNR. Also things like well water. If you have a well on your property, you can get that water tested as often as you like. Health and Human Services through the county will come out and test it 12 times a year if you want, and they send the results in to guess where? DNR. They get grant funding from DNR to do well water testing, and you can get it tested as often as you want if you have a concern about your water. But almost everything related to clean air and water falls under Department of Natural Resources. And if you have an interest in that, please, if you got time, apply for a job there. Get some work. Volunteer and get involved in that. That's very important. I don't think anyone in the county is against clean air and water. So that would be a ridiculous position to have. Thanks.
Now, I'm gonna give you guys just a quick moment here we'll go down the line, give you guys your closing statements. Please try to keep it respectful, please. There we go.
Am I starting?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know what to say at this point. I mean, I've traveled, I've lived a life, and I've come a long way to be sitting here in front of you, starting out very much in poverty, real poverty, where you don't have food at the end of the month. And I know what it's like to be hungry, and to have, left that and worked sometimes 5 jobs at a time to get somewhere different from where I come from. I've had a lot of hardship, a lot of people wanting to tear me down, step on me. That's par for the course. I'm not whining. That's what it is. And I'm grateful for it because it's made me a stronger person today. I have a very thick skin. I'm in politics. You have to have thick skin. That's just the reality of it. But what I find, again, I wasn't looking to be a supervisor. I had retired. I had done my stint. I started the Dream Project to help with housing. In Davenport, I was doing a lot of volunteer stuff in the community, and I thought, I'm just gonna lay low, somebody else can do it. And again, this apparently hit the paper, and everybody and their mother was calling me, apply, and it's actually a very, very good fit. My education and background as a financial advisor and accountant was a perfect plug-in to the board because they had no one representing the budget. I understand the budget and how it works, and David Farmer also knows that I understand it. We have a lot of good conversations. Just even last week, I caught a small miscalculation miscalculation in the budget, and David had actually superimposed a couple of numbers by mistake, but I caught it. That's what I do. I'm very much a numbers-oriented person. It's a very good fit at the county from my experience being a small business owner and working in the community. And I add quite a bit to the board that wasn't there before. So I stand by that between education and training, and it's been a very good fit, and it's been wonderful to work for the people of Scott County. I always view my job as being in your service. I'm not there in my service. I'm there for the people that live in Scott County. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. I just want to say, I'm up here because I see things where I think I can make a difference, and I do care. I don't have all the experience Rita and Ken do, but